that we all have to work together in what we're going through here. Whether it's youth violence, whether it's mental health, everything has a connection. And these kind of events just open your eyes to other people who are out here doing the good work.
That was Jason McBride, and this is the Voice of Montbello podcast. Welcome to the Voice of Montbello podcast. Today we're streaming live from the Active Collective Trauma Community Summit here at Stanley Marketplace in Denver, Colorado. Thank you for tuning in at day one of the Active Collective Trauma Community Summit. Day one is all about understanding and recognizing the active collective trauma.
This Day 3 Summit is represented by partnering agencies of social equity and innovation, the Public Health Institute at Denver Health and the Denver Office of Behavioral Health.
I'm here with my brother,
Jaime.
And today we hope to see people open up, and I hope they can come out of this place feeling better, feeling less stressed and feeling overall just great. What do you hope to see when people leave this place?
I just want to make them, feel better about themselves, get them out of their trauma.
I hope that by talking about their trauma, they can learn to, cope with it. They have coping mechanisms, and maybe they can get to talk to people around here, Maybe there's people in the audience who have the same type of experience, and they can talk about it, What about you? What traumas do you have?
I don't really have that much traumas other than, I don't know, my parents being separated,
Yeah, I can relate to you on that one. I think that's a very sad thing to go through. It is a hard thing. Seeing your parents separate is like, it's a traumatic experience.
You have to live with them for the rest of your life.
But things like that's gonna happen, and honestly, you gotta learn how to cope with it. You can't break yourself over and over. If you can find someone you can talk to, that's always a great thing. And hello to everyone in the stream right now. Sharing your experiences can help yourself and help everyone out. I just hope that the same way that we can talk to people, they can talk to other people and themselves. Yeah.
We really just want to make them feel better about themselves,
Yeah.
Have somebody to talk to about their trauma and stuff.
If you can open up to someone and they open up to you, you guys can, guys can feel free. You can get it off your chest, everything gone. And it's really nice to have someone to talk to. That's why we're here at Stanley Marketplace, and we're here to interview people. Well, about interviewing, our first interview, we want to welcome Jason McBride from the Struggle of Love Foundation to the stream. Our first interview, we want to welcome Jason McBride from the Struggle of Love Foundation to the stream. Welcome, Jason. How are you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
We're doing great. We can't wait to see people open up, and maybe they can get something off your chest.
Definitely.
What does trauma mean to you?
Trauma is something that, to me, if you don't deal with it, it's going to stop you from truly being great and slow you down. And it's something that either you've been through or someone you love, and a traumatic experience, a crime, violence, something like that, that you really need to deal with, for your own mental well-being.
Have you experienced trauma yourself?
Oh yes, I've experienced plenty of trauma from my years of being in gangs to what I'm doing now. I still experience it through the clients and the kids that I deal with right now.
How do you deal with that trauma?
Well, it's tough because self-care is everything in this game, and if you don't get your self-care, you really it's like they say, it's hard to pour from an empty cup, right? So I have to take time off, and I have to be better at being better and good to myself.
How does the trauma affect you physically or mentally?
Well, it stops you from, you maybe not sleep well, you might not eat well, you can't be as good as you can be. So it inhibits your behaviors.
Why did you decide to join us today?
Because I want people to understand.
How did you overcome your trauma?
The first thing I learned about trauma was if you don't transform it, you're going to transfer it. So I had to take that trauma and turn it into something different, and I turned it into something positive. A lot of people maybe start art and music or whatever, but I use that trauma to do what I do now. Give away backpacks, mentor kids, and do different things. And that's how I lost 23 friends to gangs. So going through that, I was going to like a funeral every other week, and still in the work that I do now, I see a lot of that too. So. Now I'm able to handle it because I know what I'm going through, right? A lot of us, when we go through trauma, we don't necessarily even know that's trauma. And so just being able to identify it and truly take the steps to do something about it.
What do you think are some ways you can identify trauma?
Well, if you don't feel like you normally do, if you're not as good as you feel, if you are sluggish, if you're depressed, if you're sleepy all the time, those could be indications that there's some trauma.
What's your opinion on gun violence?
I think it's really out of control, especially for our youth. I think there are a proliferation of guns that our youth have access to, and it's causing huge problems, death, jail time for people in our community.
How does gun violence affect you?
How does it affect me? A lot of the kids or the clients that I deal with are either the victims or the perpetrators of gun violence. And, they're 12, 13, 14 years old. So when we're talking about gun violence, we're talking about kids who have access to guns that they shouldn't have access to. We're also talking about high-powered weapons, AK-47s, AR-15s that a lot of kids are now starting to, find and use out on the streets. So it's definitely a real issue. And we really need to examine different gun control measures and laws because what we've been doing in the past isn't working for us now.
Someone who's in a gang, what would be your best advice for them?
See, that's a good question because a lot of gangs or a lot of gang issues now are generational. And what that means is that we've had gangs in our community for so long that now, when granddad was in the gang, then his son was in the gang, and now grandson's in that same gang. So a lot of these neighborhoods have had, decades of gang activity. So that has just passed down from generation to generation. And so that's just like generational trauma. It's just inherited. So we have to do a better job of identifying these youth in the areas and then providing them with resources and opportunities that they don't feel like they need to turn to gangs. Some people do it for different reasons, for protection, for a sense of belonging, different things. And we need to teach these kids that you can belong to something. It doesn't have to be that. We can get you into different organizations. We can get you in different activities, and you don't have to risk jail time or your life to be involved.
Right. So, you mentioned that you got shot before. What was going through your mind when you got shot?
What was going through my mind? This was in 1994, so I just didn't want to die at that point. I just wanted to continue to live, and getting shot is a totally different experience. So I drove myself to the hospital, and I was able to survive and change my life around.
What are the events that led up to that?
Just being in the gang, hanging out with the wrong people, doing the wrong stuff. The same thing that a lot of our youth and different clients that I deal with go through on a daily basis.
There are many people who want to leave a gang because they joined from a friend. And what do you say to those people?
Well, there are different things. Just because your friends or your family are getting involved in those things doesn't mean that you have to. And you can help those people out of those situations by just helping them find different avenues for them to get rid of that trauma, because a lot of the gang activity is based on trauma and wanting to get back and retaliate because you lost somebody or somebody was hurt. And just it's a hard thing to do because I can characterize gang activity like drug abuse. You can get addicted to it, right? And so providing those avenues and things for the kids that are going through those things to do something different is what we're looking to do.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing this trauma and ways to cope with it. Nice having you, Jason, and we hope to see you next time.
Thank you guys, did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Voice of Montbello podcast from the Active Collective Trauma Community Summit. To support our work and hear more youth-led community-based content, subscribe to our podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. Also, follow us on social media at Confluence Media Center. This has been a Confluence Media production.